As our last contribution right before a short break, I would like to thank all of our partners, which you can see behind me, and welcome Helge Michael from the Mind Incubator. He will be speaking on self-sovereign identity and eIDAS. It's right here. And your presentation will be opened right away.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Helge Michael. I'm working for Main Incubator, which is a 100% subsidiary of Commerzbank. I guess you all know Commerzbank. And yeah, I have started to look into self-sovereign identities 4 years ago. And together with my team, I'm building a self-sovereign identity software that's called Lissy, so building a software wallet and also other agents to verify and issue, verify credentials. And on top of that, we have built an ecosystem in Germany that's called ID Union. That's one of the biggest ecosystems for self-sovereign identity in Germany and which is fostered by the Ministry of Economics. And today, I want to give you an update on SSI and regulatory side. Maybe you have heard of eIDAS regulation that plays a key role in the future for self-sovereign identity. And yeah, I will like to give you a short update on what eIDAS could mean for this technology. But first, let me start with why do we need self-sovereign identity and why do we talk about self-sovereign identity? And yeah, I work for a bank and identification in Germany is still done via post-ident in a postal office. So you have to go with a QR code into a postal office. They look into your ID card and identify yourself. You have video identification, and that's, to be honest, not a digital process because you need some kind of physical means. So that's how it is done in Germany in 95% of all cases. We have an eID in Germany, still for 10 years, but only a few customers are using it. For authentication, we're still relying on usernames and passwords, and it becomes complex because all the passwords need to be longer and longer, and no one can remember them. Facebook and Google will try to solve the problem, introducing single sign-on based on OpenID Connect, but this comes with a lot of disadvantages. You give up all the rights. It's not transportable. We know who you are, we're connecting your data, and you also have a big honeypot for identity data, and that's really a big problem. And that's the problems what we like to solve with self-sovereign identity, and in the future we think, it looks like that. In identification and authentication, you have a wallet and you connect with a wallet. This could be done with SSI, self-sovereign identity, but it could also be done with other technologies, but we are strong believers in the self-sovereign identity stack. What you can see here is an overview about different ecosystems all over the world. And I'm not talking about SSI protocols, I'm really talking about ecosystems, because what we see is a lot of different protocols, but to be honest, most of the protocols are not used. There's no use case, there's no one who's using that. And these are really ecosystems in the world where you're run by states, where you're funded by states, where are specific use cases for example, in the area of health or travel. And what you can see here, we have lots of protocols, but most of our ecosystems are currently relying on only a few different protocols. That's, for example, Hyperledger INI, permission blockchain, that's Polkadot, IOTA, and Hyperledger Besu. That are the main protocols that are currently used. But what is the problem right here? So self-sovereign identity was first introduced in 2017 by Christopher Allen, so the first principles. But even in 2022, mass adoption could not yet be achieved. But what is the reason? We are talking about self-sovereign identity, but to be honest, there is no real use case in production right now. And for me, there are three problems. The first problem is technical obstacles. So we have a lot of different protocols, as already mentioned, mainly in the area of DIDs. So DIDs are decentralized identifiers, and nearly each blockchain has its own DID method, and there are blockchains that have even 3 or 4 different DID methods. That's really a problem, and currently we have more than 120 different DID methods right there. And nobody can control it, but there is a solution. That's a DID resolver, so it's currently possible to resolve different DIDs from different blockchains. So that technical problem is solvable, but there's another problem. There are different credential standards, and you all know the verified credential standards, but the verified credential standards, for example, is not usable for credentials like unknown threads. And maybe you know Hyperledger Indy, Hyperledger Aries, they currently strongly interlinked with unknown threads. So unknown threads is a specific credential standard that relies especially selective disclosure of attributes, so playing a key role when it comes to privacy. And bringing together these different standards is really difficult. And if you look into the wallets, identity wallets right now on the market, we're only supporting at least one identity standard and credential standard, but not all the different credential standards, and we are currently not interoperability. And that's the problem. And the third technical problem is the communication exchange, where also a lot of different communication protocols. So we have DIDCOM, we have out-of-band protocol, OpenID Connect, and we also have CHAPI, for example. And that makes it also really difficult for identity wallets to communicate with each other because normally you have only 1 or 2 identity protocols that are interlinked. But there's also light on the horizon because we have something like Aries Interoperability Profile 2.0. That's a protocol that could be the standard for identity wallets in the future, and at least solving this kind of problems. But still, the problem is that people are currently concentrating too much on building new protocols, building new standards, and don't concentrate on building really use cases. And that's, on my opinion, the big problem, because you should focus on a specific protocol when you should build a use case, and the standard wins who has the most use cases at the end of the day. And so please really build on use cases in the future, and that's what we are concentrating currently within our ID Union consortium. The second problem is the social and business obstacles. So what we see is that centralized identity providers like Google and Apple, where business is really centralized, and they need your data, and they are not interested in a decentralized identity system because they earn money with your data. And so we have raised objections, especially against the W3C DID standard, and that's really a big problem right now. And what we also see is a lot of criticism against SSI in general. Last year, maybe you have followed the discussion, the Bundeschancellery, we had their own identity project, and before the election, we somehow released a mobile driver license, and we had a lot of problems with scalability, we had a lot of problems with security, and then the Chaos Computer Club especially raised questions about the security, and they also raised questions about DLT in general. And also the BSI, so the German Agency for Cybersecurity, raised also questions about the technology and the DLT, and that's really to be honest, we do not understand why is it like that, because when it comes to digital assets, we completely rely on DLT itself. But when we talk about identity, everyone is discussing the security of blockchain itself. And that's a big problem. I don't know why. Maybe we have to communicate it better, because maybe people do not understand that you do not store any personal data on the blockchain, because most of the protocols do not store any personal information on the blockchain. It's only used as the PKI infrastructure. But that's currently is a big problem. And the last problem is regulation. What we see in Germany, we already have an experimental clause for AML, for anti-money laundering law. So this was passed the legislation process last year in Germany. And the idea was that the German Bundesdruckerei derives an ID into a wallet, that's what was called the basis ID, and allows for an anti-money laundering process, a KYC process in banks, and banks were allowed, that was the plan, to open accounts on top of this SSI solution. But it was not, or it was never used because the Bundeschancellery project, after the election, was closed, and we're currently in discussion how it will be continued in the future. But we still have an experimental clause, but nobody is using it right now. And also a big problem is that we have a lot of competing governmental projects. And maybe you're aware of it. We do not have only the Chancellery project. We also have a project run by the Ministry of Interior in Germany. That's called the Smart eID. That's your eID in Germany based on a smartphone. And we also have a project, Showcase Digital Identities, that's run by the Ministry of Economics. That's where our project is also part of. So 3 competing projects in Germany run by the same government, and that's really a problem because we are really competing against each other. And if we do not have one single standard, it's really difficult to build a strategy and to build a product on top of it. But where is light on the horizon? And that is eIDAS. eIDAS stands for Electronic Identification, Authentication, and Trust Services. And that's the regulation in Europe for identification and authentication and trust service, as it says. And there was a revision in June last year saying that the member states should be obligated in the future to offer digital identity wallets to all residents. And we need to issue identity credentials into the wallet and give it to all the residents also. And the most important point is all the different wallets from the member states need to be interoperable. So it needs to be possible. For example, if an Italian resident comes to a German bank, he needs to be able to use the digital wallet, the Italian digital wallet, to open a bank account in Germany. And right now it's not possible because we have a lot of different means of identification. And this wallet should be built on self-determined principles. And to be honest, when we started our journey, we decided, okay, self-sovereign identity. In Germany, we cannot translate it in selbstsouveräne Identität. We called it selbstbestimmte Identität. And that's exactly the same, self-determined. So we do not distinguish it. We think it's probably the same. So self-sovereign identity, self-determined identity. So meaning there's really a chance to building these kind of wallets, the EU digital wallets, on top of SSI principles. And currently there's a lot of discussions about that. And it could be really a chance having self-sovereign identity principles and standards within an EU digital wallet. And what's important is this is not only for public use cases or regulated use cases, this is also for private use cases. And especially big major platforms, definitions in the Digital Markets Act, meaning platforms with more than 45 million customers like Facebook, Google, they are mandated and obliged to accept the EU digital wallet. And imagine where is a Facebook account and a Google account where you do not use your Google and Facebook credentials, but the EU digital wallet to sign in. And that could be a complete game changer for identification and authentication in the EU. And also in the banking sector, where will also be an obligation for banks to use it for strong customer authentication. So meaning, if you currently do a transaction, transfer money, you need to have strong customer authentication, so the second factor. Normally it's done via a mobile TAN or a photo TAN. In the future, this will be done via the EU digital wallet, and all the banks will be obliged to do so. So there will be really a big impact from eIDAS to the identification and authentication in the European Union. And now you think, okay, I'm talking about a really big horizon, but there's a really tight timeline. So the first eIDAS revision was introduced in June 2021. The eIDAS Toolbox and the eIDAS Toolbox are the technical principles. They were released in February 2022, and in October 2022, the completely eIDAS Toolbox, all the technical standards should be defined. And then in 2023, in Q1, the legislation should pass the law, and 1 year later, all member states in the EU are obliged to offer digital identity wallets to their residents. And that means in 2 years, only in 2 years, all European citizens will have a European digital identity wallet where they can identify and authenticate even on platforms like Facebook and Google. And I guess most of you cannot imagine that this is really possible, but that's at least what EU Commission foresees for the European market. And some people say this eIDAS revision is as big as euro introduction. So the euro, the payment, the euro. And so meaning all European citizens will have the same digital means for identification in the whole European market. What you can see here is a short outline from the eIDAS Toolbox, really confusing graphic. We have tried to somehow map it into an SSI architecture. And what you can see here is, on the left-hand side is the issuer. You already know, SSI system has an issuer. You have a holder in the middle, that's the end user. And you have a verifier, relying party on the right-hand side. For the issuers within the eIDAS, we will have 3 different kinds of issuers. We will have PID providers, that's the basic ID, that comes from the member states. And there's a kind of authentic source, and that's really important. This could be, for example, a university, this could be a tax authority. And the idea is that you do not have a basic identification means in the wallet, but also different diplomas, different tax assessments, whatever you can imagine should be as a trusted, verified credential within the wallet. And here you have some kind of qualified electronic attestation at attributes provider. That's a new trust service. That's a regulated service that's responsible for issuing certain credential into the wallet. And you have another non-qualified provider, EAA is it called, and that's the private sector. So every private institution will be able to issue some kind of credentials into the wallet. This could be a member card, this could be a shopping card, this could be a credit card or other payment means. And that's really what eIDAS is envisaging. It's not only for the public sector and some kind of identification document in a digital form. It's really every single or every identity that you could imagine will be within the EU digital wallet. And that could be really a game changer and somehow also changes certain business models. And the identity sector in Germany is at least a little bit nervous about it, because you have identification via auto-ident, video-ident, and if you have only a single wallet, it will be much easier to do identification and authentication, for example, in KYC processes or whatever you can imagine. On the right-hand side, you see the verifiers that are relying parties. Everyone could be a relying party. You only need to be need to apply at the member state. And on the bottom line, you can see some kind of registry. This could be a blockchain, but it also could be a PKI infrastructure or any other means of registry. And now there's a big discussion in the eIDAS toolbox. Is it a blockchain? Is it not a blockchain? maybe in 1 year, if I'm having a presentation, I can give you insights what it is right now. But as of now, there's really a big chance that SSI, even with DLT, could be a solution. Okay, many thanks.